my name is Micah Watson and I'm a composer and music producer. Welcome to the Mastering Ableton Live series where I teach you the whole Ableton Live manual chronologically. Today we are doing chapter 6, which is the arrangement view, and I'm really excited about this because I can finally show you something other than how to save files and move clips around. Yay! Although that's pretty much what making music is moving clips around and saving it at the end. But let's not get distracted. Alright, so when you open your live project, you should be seeing session view, and you can hit tab on your keyboard to get to the arrangement view. And the arrangement view displays the arrangement, which contains music laid out along a song timeline like a multi-track tape. The arrangement view is really great for editing your MIDI loops or sound effects or music to video that you've made. And just refine your ideas if you enjoy recording from session view and you want to change a few things or just make things a little bit better. Or worse, if you don't want to sound too good. Just a quick recap for those that haven't been watching all my videos. To record something in arrangement view from session view, you hit the record button and you launch your clips. Mine launched because I'd already had them prepared, and I've already recorded it, so you don't see any new data, but just now you will. There you go, it's recording. Alright, I just hit spacebar to stop, or you can navigate your mouse to the stop button and click on there. So let's talk about how to navigate through the arrangement view. There are whole different ways that you can zoom in the arrangement view. The first one is if you move your mouse to this beat time view, so that's basically this dark gray area where there are numbers. You can click and move your mouse up and down, and you will see that it zooms. You can also use your keyboard and hit the plus and minus buttons to increase and decrease your zoom. I am using a laptop, and for some reason I need to hit shift plus, but not shift minus. It's probably because the plus needs shift and the other one is a hyphen and a minus, but they both look like minuses, so never mind. Just be aware that if your plus isn't working, try using shift plus to zoom in and just the normal minus, or shift minus maybe even, to zoom out. Now just above this beat time view, you can see what the manual refers to a bird's eye view of your music. This is called the arrangement overview, and basically it's showing your whole arrangement timeline in a very condensed way, and this little black box around it is showing you in which area of your whole arrangement you are seeing in this main window. So if I hover my mouse onto this black box and move it to the right, you can see that my whole view in my arrangement view moves to the right, and I can move it back to the left. And you can see these little colored lines at the top here. These represent all my musical clips. I can change the size of this box by hovering my mouse to the side of it. I get this square bracket, and I can move it to the right size, and you can see that my main window adjusts. You can also click and move your mouse up and down to zoom, very similar to when you're in the beat time view. And you can also just click in a specific area of this arrangement overview to have the box move there immediately. If you want this main arrangement view to follow your music while it plays through it, so you see everything's kind of still now, and at the end the transport bar is just going to disappear. I was playing in session view. I just hit back to arrangements, so it actually just plays what's in my arrangement view, like there. So this bar is just going to keep going. If I want my window to follow this bar, you can click this button over here next to these changing numbers. And now you can see that this transport bar is kind of always in the middle of my screen. I can also click it to undo it, or I can hit Shift Command F for the shortcut, or I can go to Options and go to Follow. Okay, but just use that button or Shift Command F, because going to the main menu all the time, not the main menu, this menu bar all the time is very time consuming and life is short. So now let's actually talk about this transport bar. I've already spoken about this follow selection button over here. This is your play button, this is your stop button, this is your record button. This is your MIDI arrange overdub, which we're not going to be talking about today, and neither are we going to be talking about these two guys, but this is your automation arm. So basically, if this is armed, you can record automation. And this is your re-enable automation button, which I've spoken about in, I think, my first video, maybe my second video, so you can always go back. But basically, it's your re-enable automation button, and it re-enables automation for any parameters that are currently overwritten. Okay, so what this does is if you've got some kind of automation saved in your sets, and you actually want to override that automation temporarily because you are performing live and you've got a MIDI controller and you want to have some fun, then you can do whatever you want with that controller, and Ableton Live is going to stop doing what you've recorded in your set, but it's going to do what you're doing on your MIDI controller instead. But when you're done playing around with your MIDI controller and you want Ableton to now follow the automation as saved in your arrangement view, then you can hit this button again. The reason I can't click it is because for me, automation is already enabled, but as soon as I attach a MIDI controller and change parameters and things, other than what's recorded in here while I'm playing back, then you'll be able to activate this button. Okay, but now let's talk about this guy over here. You see these numbers. This is essentially the numbers of where your transport bar is. So your transport bar is this little bar here. It's orange now, and as soon as it starts playing, it goes black. You can move this transport bar by clicking anywhere in your arrangement view, or you can change your numbers over here. Like if I wanted to start at the beginning of the piece, I can go 1, 1, 1 and hit spacebar or play, and you can see that it's starting from right at the beginning. Or you can hover your mouse over it and pull up and down and just change the numbers like that. You can also return the arrangement play position to 1, 1, 1. Instead of putting 1, 1, 1 in here, you can just double click the stop button. So let's play from here. You can see it jumps to the left over there. Or you can press the home key on a PC or function button on a Mac with the left arrow key. So like that. So just try that out and hopefully it works. If you've kind of played from a random location and you hit space or stop and you hit space or play again, it's going to keep starting from where this orange marker is. But if you want your Ableton transport bar to resume playback from where it last stopped, you need to hit Shift and space. Also, if you have permanent scrub areas enabled, I'll tell you what that is shortly, then you will get this little icon over here, which is a speaker. It's between your beat time bar and your arrangement view. And when I have this enabled, I can just click at any part and it'll start playback. Now, there's a little moment of hesitation here. I played it, and there's this little green guy. And it's waiting. So the reason it's waiting and it's not playing back there immediately is that scrub areas are subject to quantization. What that means is it's only ever going to play at a specific interval that I've set. So at the moment my quantization setting is 1 bar here. So my scrub area is always going to start playing from the beginning of a bar. So it finishes playing that bar until it moves. If I change this to something tiny, like a hemi-demi semi-quaver, guys, that's a 32nd note, then you can see it snaps there immediately. Okay, if your permanent scrub areas is off, i.e. you can't see this little guy when you hover your mouse, you go to Live, Preferences, Look and Feel, Permanent Scrub Areas. So most likely this is what it looks like on your screen, and you just make sure it's on and not off. But even if it's off, let's switch it off for the sake of demonstration. If it's off and I don't have my little speaker, I can override my preference by hitting Shift, and now I've got the little speaker. This is quite useful because if you're hovering along and you keep by mistake clicking this, you know, your transport bar is going to move around. So if you know what you're doing and you only want to sometimes play from a random place, then it is better to have it off. But I'm going to put it on again because that's the default, and I'm teaching you from the manual as though this is a default program. When I look at this box here, I told you can just change the numbers at random, but you might actually want to know what these numbers mean. So this first number here is the bar, so I want to go to the first bar. The second box here is which beat. So as you can see, there are 4 beats in this bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's start at the third beat. No, not the second bar, the first bar. Not listening to me. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Brilliant. And this last little guy is the 16th note. So if I zoom in, you can see further little grids. And you can see it move along there. I'll talk about grids a little bit later. Also note that any of your computer keyboard or MIDI controls can be assigned to these little guys using this key mapping. So if I hit this key mapping, you see everything that goes orange, you can assign to a controller on your MIDI keyboard or your MIDI controller. I spoke about this in one of our previous videos, and I will do a demonstration of this in one of our future videos. So let's talk about launching the arrangement with locators. So at the moment, we've just been launching places at kind of random with this transport bar, but you can also set locators in your actual arrangement. Locators are great because you might have a verse, and then you might have a chorus, and then you might want to kind of hop between sections quite easily without having to constantly move your mouse at the correct place. So if you look here on the right, you see this lock orange thing, but next to it you see set, right and left. If you put your transport bar in a particular location and you push the set, you click the set button, you can see a new triangle has appeared over here. This is now a locator. Let's just set let's set another locator. Now these left and right buttons are jumping the transport bar to the various locators. You can also delete a locator by clicking on it and hitting delete. You can also set locators by using your control click above here and say add locator. Or you can go create delete locator because I've selected locator, but if I go like randomly, I get bored of my voice, so I'm just talking differently now. I know it sounds really bad, I'm so sorry. Insert, add locator. So this is what I'm talking about. You add locator over there, and then you can name it. Sorry, you're probably really annoyed right now. Okay, I'll just go back to my boring voice. Okay, so you can name this locator. You can right click on it or control click, and you can hit rename. Let's call this locator number 3. And this one number 1. It's so confusing. Number 3 should be after number 1, guys. Did you not do maths? Okay, but another thing you can do with locators, if you right click, you can go edit info text. And that allows you to write here in this info text at the bottom left, and you can say chorus 1. Yeah. So when you jump to this locator, it'll say chorus 1, and then you know where you are. You can also move your locators without your mouse by using the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard. And you can jump to different locators using these keys, which I've already told you. And also know that setting locators follows these quantization rules. So mine, as you can see, snapped to this little grid. This isn't this quantization setting, this is another quantization setting, which I will get to when I talk about the grid later towards the end of the video. Okay, so similar to locators, you can also make time signature changes. So at the moment, it's pretty full here, but there is actually a so-called signature track between this arrangement overview and this beat time bar. You just can't see it now because there are no time signature changes, but if you right click, insert time signature change, you can see that this new gray line appears and you can change your time signature. How you do that is you can, if you want to go from 4/4 as we are now to 3/4, you can write 3-4, or you can go like 3,4 or 3-4. There needs to be a delimiter of sorts between the two numbers. I'm just going to use the / because that looks the most normal to me. And now you've changed your time signature and you can go in again. Let's have a little interlude over there. So these are quite similar to locators in that you can select them and use your keyboard left and right and move them around, and they snap to the grid. You can also delete them. But now I want to talk about this really cool gray thing over here. You might not have gotten a gray thing. As you see, when I move my time signature to a specific location, the gray disappears. Essentially what this gray represents is that you have a bar that is abnormal. And if I zoom in here, this time signature change occurs before this previous 4/4 bar is done. But if I move it over to the beginning, to the first beat of a new bar, the weird gray lines disappear. Which tells us that all these bars are normal. Even if I move it one beat ahead, you're going to get this gray line which shows that this bar here is abnormal. To fix this, you can either right click and you can go delete fragmentary bar time. So that'll delete this single beated bar that is definitely not a 4/4 bar. Or you can complete the fragmentary bar, so insert time. That should insert 3 beats to turn it into a full bar. And if I zoom out, you can see here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's full bar now, and that's when my 3/4 time signature changes. If you control click or right click on this little guy, you can also delete all time signature changes. You can edit it or delete just a single one, but let's just delete all of them because I don't need them. And it has given me, because I have completed this one fragmentary bar, I've now got this huge gaping hole over here, which I will show you how to fix shortly. You can also change the time signature of your whole project. If you go to the top left, similar to the transport bar, it's on the left where you have your tempo and this is your time signature. So 3, 4, and now everything's got only 3 beats. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 5, or 4. If you have a time signature change, then on the left, at the top left here, you see this little red like LED wannabe light. This is telling you that you have more than one time signature in your project. As soon as I delete this guy, that light disappears, well, that color disappears, which means your whole project is in one time signature, and that whole time signature is this 4/4 time signature. Now, if you've received a MIDI file from someone and they have time signature changes in it and all of that kind of thing, then it's actually encoded into the MIDI file, which means you could import the MIDI file into Ableton and it would change all the time signatures to match the MIDI file, which is really, really cool and a huge time saver if you are transporting a lot of MIDI files to people. Okay, so let's talk about the arrangement loop. So still in this transport bar, but now on the right side, you get this kind of rectangle with the arrow pointing to the left. It's like a snake from the old Nokia phones that is about to die, and you're like, no, don't do it, and then he dies. Well, that's this arrangement loop button. Did I say transport bar earlier? I mean control bar. This guy up here is the control bar. Sorry, guys. So for Live to repeatedly play the same section, you need to have this loop button enabled, and you need to choose a section. So by going anywhere in your arrangement view, clicking and dragging, you'll see this blue. And you can right click and you can go loop selection, or you can hit Command L, and you can see that it gets these like locators. So if this loop selection button is not on, so I'm clicking at the top here on the control bar, and it is not yellow, then even though I've got a selection activated, it's just going to go straight past it. But I want it to loop. So having this selected is not enough. You need to have this loop selected, and now it's just going to keep looping that, which is tons of fun when you have like tiny little sections. Gonna make a cool little drop. Yay! Okay, but we're not doing that right now. So you can manually select a section, like I said, by highlighting it and then right-clicking loop selection, or you can use these little guys around this loop selector. So on the left, this will be your start position. So let's start at bar number 2. And on the right, this is not your end position. This is actually your length. So I want it to go on for one whole bar. So I'm just going to go 1, 0, 0. So now I've got one whole bar selected, and if I change this to 2, it'll be 2 whole bars selected. Okay, so beware, this is not the end, this is the length, which is contrary to maybe some other DAWs that you have worked with in the past. And now above here, when you've got these 2 markers and you've selected things underneath, sometimes this guy up here is a light gray color, and sometimes it's this dark blue navy color. And that's a bit weird. But basically, this color changing rectangle over here is called the loop brace. And you select it when you click on it. Once you've clicked on it, you can do some pretty cool things with the selection. So you can use your left and right arrow keys on your keyboard to move the whole selection one grid measure to the right and to the left. You can use the up and down arrow keys to move the whole section. Oh, let me show you with a smaller selection. Alright, I've got a small selection here of 1 beat of a bar. If I move up and down, it moves a whole beat to the right and to the left. Make sure your loop brace is selected. So you can see there it jumps a whole beat. If this is 2 beats and my loop brace is selected and I hit the up and down keyboard buttons, it'll move 2 beats to the left or to the right. This is different to the left and right, remember, which only moves it 1 grid measure to the left and to the right. Now if you do Command and use a left or right arrow key, you can see that it only changes one side of the selection. And if you hit Command up and down, it will either double or halve the selection. So these are some really cool keyboard shortcuts to know. And remember, if it's not working, you're hitting left and right and the orange guy's moving, but you want the selection to move, the loop brace needs to be selected. You can also drag these guys manually if you want to manually change the size of your loop brace. Typically, if you hit the stop button twice, like I said earlier, your transport bar moves to the beginning and you can play from the beginning. But as you can see, my first bar is empty. Okay, so if you want your default play position to change, add a locator to where you want it to change. Right click, set song start time here. Now when I double hit the stop button and press play, it'll start at this locator. And if I want it to stop looping, make sure that loop is not enabled. Okay, now let's talk about specific clips. You can select a clip by single clicking on this colored rectangle at the top, and then by holding, you can move it to the left and right. You can even move it up and down. Although remember, if you move a MIDI track to an audio file, it's not going to work because they're different. You can also resize them. If you hover your mouse and you get your square bracket, you can resize the various clips. And you may notice that it's snapping to the grid. To temporarily override the snapping to grid feature, you can hit Command. Similarly, if you don't have things snapped to grid by default, then you can hit Command to snap things to grid temporarily. So audio clips can have fades and crossfades. So if I move my mouse to the right here and I see all these little tracks, first of all, make sure your track is unpacked. So let's see, your project might look like this and you might not actually see audio files. Well, go to this little triangle and unpack it like that. To unpack everything at once, you can Alt-click it when it's closed, or Alt-click it to close everything at once. Alright, so make sure this is unpacked. Then underneath the track header, so here this is called audio, it says none, we'll go to fades, and now you will see these red lines, and these red lines are where you control your fades. So if you are doing sound design or moving things along, you want things to fade from one sound to another. This is really useful, but most importantly, if you don't want something to clip by just randomly cutting the audio clip off, then you need to fade it. And a really cool thing you can do is you can go to your preferences and you can go to record warp launch, and under warp and fades, create fades on clip edges. So I have this on so that whenever I cut an audio file and forget to fade the end, it's not going to just leave a little clip, which is a stiff little sound at the end of the clip, when all of a sudden the sound waves just get cut off and end up in 0 without smoothly getting to a 0 value. So that's what that's about. You can change your fades. Remember that you've got fades open here by moving these little fade locator points. This one will change where the fade starts, and this one kind of in the middle of the slope will change the gradient. So either have like a quick fade or a slower fade. Similarly, you can crossfade two things. So I've just moved this audio clip onto here, and I can drag both of them so that they make a little X, which means as this clip fades out, this one will fade in. And if you do this properly, and it's really not hard to do it properly, you'll create a seamless transition between the two clips. And if it doesn't sound seamless to you, then you can change the value. So you can change the X lower down, or have one fade out faster while the other one fades in quicker, or all sorts of things. So you just do what it takes to make it sound smooth. That just sounds weird right now, but whatevs. As long as you understand how to use fade so that your music's going to sound awesome. What auto fade does, you can't even see it here, but if you zoom in really closely, there will always be this fade that's 4 milliseconds. So even if I try and delete my fade by clicking on this little notch and hitting the delete key, it doesn't go away. Let me show you better on the other side. There. I'm going to hit delete, and the fade's not actually gone. It's just this little 4 millisecond fade. And if I turn my auto fades off, you're going to get a fade that's like that. But that's not what I want. So I'm going to hit delete and get back to my auto fade. So some things to know about fades. You can't have a fade that's longer than your actual clip. Okay. So when you're busy playing with your fades and you see these little dotted lines, this is like your fade boundary, and you won't be able to go further than that with your fade. Another thing to note about fades is fades are a property of this clip. It has nothing to do with the automation in your arrangement or anything else going on in your arrangement. It's purely clip specific. And that's also why it has a separate category here, fades. It's not like some other automated parameter. I've told you how to select clips. Now this is something I think is pretty cool. You can select a section in the clip, so don't click on the color at the top. Click inside the clip and drag, and you get this blue hue. You've selected an area of the clip, but now if before clicking you move your mouse to this colorful area and you drag it, you're splitting the clip up. This is a very quick way to slice and splice clips up. So that's pretty cool. And because auto fade is on, they should all have a little fade, as you can see. Another way that you can slice clips is by selecting an area, loop selection, and then actually just dragging this whole guy out. You can also use the slice command. Oh, sorry, the split command. Too many DAWs in my head. Okay, go edit, split. And the shortcut for that is Command E. So you can move this little transport bar and just split things however you feel, and then you can also move them around. Alright, now let's talk about the grid, these lines. I mentioned at the beginning of the video a few times that I'll tell you about the grid. This grid essentially subdivides beats based on how zoomed in you are. So the further I zoom in, the more grids appear. This is a setting that you can change. So if you go to your context menu in an empty area of your arrangement view, you get this kind of set of things, I guess. I'm on adaptive grid. An adaptive grid is what I've just explained to you, where the grid changes based on your zoom level. But if you want it to be a fixed grid and that the grid is always just 8 bars no matter how zoomed in you are, you can click that, and now no matter how zoomed in I am, these gray lines are every 8 bars. So when I zoom in, yeah, there's some color changes just to help me visually see some order, but it's not some kind of grid that I'm being snapped to. So to get there again, you just right click in any area, and you can also choose all different options, how wide your adaptive grid is, narrow, narrowest. So when I zoom in, it's quite narrow. I'm going to go for just narrow, or you can do a triplet grid. You can also use some keyboard shortcuts to change the grid, starting with Command 1 all the way to Command 5. So if I hit Command 1, you can see this grid essentially doubles. There are twice as many grid values as were before. If I hit Command 2, it halves it. So you can kind of play with Command 1 and 2 to change the density of these grids. Command 3 toggles triplet mode. So it's not halving or anything, it's just instead of having 4 grids in one, it's got 6, which means I can create triplets or 6 tuplets or whatever I want, which is really useful if you're making a fun little rhythmic element to create some variety in your music. So Control 4 will turn grid snapping on or off. So I've just hit Control 4 and you can see these little dotted lines as though they want it to be a grid, but there's no grid, there's no snapping. I can just move it wherever. And as soon as I enable the grid again by hitting Command 4, you can see this little guy snap. And Command 5 fixes either to have adaptive grid or not. I don't have an adaptive grid now, it's every 8 bars. Let's do it every eighth note. And as soon as I hit Command 5, it toggles adaptive grid and you get the point. The current spacing between these adjacent grid lines is displayed in the lower right corner of the arrangement view or clip view. So here I've got this 1/16th, and if I halve it or double it using my Command 2 buttons and 3 buttons, you can see this value change. If I had a clip selected, then you can also see this button here on the clip view down there. Okay, so remember earlier on there was this empty space, which I've now completely destroyed. I was telling you that I will show you how to sort it out. And I'll be talking about how to delete time and all of these things. So these are called the time commands, and you will find them under Edit. And here you see cut time, duplicate time, delete time. There's also consolidate, which I'm still going to get to, and insert silence. So if you've got the silent bit and you want to delete it, and when I mean delete, I mean like everything that's in this space be gone forever. Delete time, and everything gets pushed closer, and this means that your actual piece is now shorter because this time is gone. Similarly, you can cut time. So I've cut that time and I can paste it somewhere else. Edit paste time. Or I can select an area and I can go duplicate time, and it's literally duplicated everything in there, but it's also added the time. So I didn't just duplicate this clip, like right click duplicate. I've actually pushed everything along. Everything got moved to the right because now there is a new time unit in my arrangement view. Before I go to consolidate, I'm going to show you insert silence. So if you want an extra bar of silence, you can highlight as much silence as you want, create insert silence, and it moves everything to the right of the silence. So it creates a silence and moves everything selected to the right. And now consolidate. So if you've got these MIDI clips, and these are 2 clips, right, and they've got fades, but if you want them to always be together and you want them to be one new audio file, you can highlight it. Yeah, let me highlight the little bits of silence on either end just to show you what this does. So to consolidate it, edit consolidate or Command J. It'll turn this whole thing into a new audio file. And this audio file gets saved in a temporary location right now, but it should be saved with all your other user library stuff. Current project samples. And there we go, under consolidate. By the way, guys, if you don't want to see these fades anymore, you can just go back to on the right here by the track, and you can go to none and take away all those red lines. And that is chapter 6 of the manual, guys. So I hope you've learned a lot. Have a lot of fun and explore your arrange view. And next week we will be talking about the session view. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments, and hopefully I or someone else can help you. And as always, have fun.